Recently, during a hotel stay, there was a fire alarm, and I was told to leave my husband behind. He uses a wheelchair.
Yes, I do.
And there were no instructions about what we were supposed to do or how we were supposed to get out. This happened at Disney's Wilderness Lodge, and it happened more than once. If you're new here, I'm Brooke.
And I'm Adam.
We travel as a wheelchair user and wife.
We've stayed at a lot of hotels.
And we've dealt with a lot of accessibility issues. Absolutely nothing prepares you for being woken in the middle of the night with flashing lights and alarms, and absolutely no information about how a wheelchair user is supposed to get out of the building. Portions of this video will contain beeping and flashing lights. Please skip to the indicated timestamp if you need to avoid that. So our stay at Disney's Wilderness Lodge actually included 3 different emergency evacuations in the matter of 4 days, which is insane. The first one happened during the daytime on like our 3rd day or so.
I believe I was getting breakfast, and as I'm talking to the cashier, we were about 30 seconds from finishing when the alarm went off. They escorted all the people out of the building. We were outside for a good while. No panic.
So the key to that one was that Adam was already on the 1st floor. Did you have any issues getting out?
No, the doors open, hit the automatic door, people just walking outside. And so the manager or one of the managers there brought out some coffee, some waters, some pastries. He basically went inside and grabbed the pastry out of the thing, croissants and different stuff.
So he was focused on trying to make people as comfortable as possible.
Yes, and he was.
Were there any special instructions for you? Did you have to, or were you just in the gaggle with everybody else?
Well, just in the gaggle with everybody else and just sat and waited in my chair.
It's also worth noting that I was at Boulder Ridge at the time because we did a split stay, and that is a separate building and did not have the same evacuation problems that Wilderness Lodge did. After Boulder Ridge, we switched to Wilderness Lodge. We actually were staying in the Copper Creek, which is the DVC rooms there in the main building. And so when we check into Wilderness Lodge, no problems. It seems like a great room. And then we go to sleep. And just after midnight, we are awoken to just loud alarms and flashing lights.
So we are in Wilderness Lodge. It is past 12 something in the morning, and the fire alarms have gone off. And right now, we're looking for cast members to tell us how do we get down from the 4th floor.
We've come to the center, hoping that people would see us. No one is telling us what to do. I saw a cast member downstairs by the front door, and so I yelled down to him, and I said, "Wheelchair, need help." And he just looked at me and just went about his business ushering people out.
That was,
and I was like, okay, this is weird and not okay. But the fact that he was so nonchalant said to me, okay, this is probably a false alarm, I hope. But also, this is very scary. I mean, those folks see us, right? It was scary, jarring.
It was
all
very.
The things. A cast member just came to us and said, "Are you guys the ones with the wheelchair?" So what I did on our way walking here, because I didn't see any of the obvious signs, and this has never happened to us before. So I called 911 and I was like, "Hi, I'm in Wilderness Lodge. There's alarms going off. My husband's in a wheelchair. I don't know what to do.
Right.
Because we can't just evacuate." They said, all right, I'm going to call folks who've been dispatched, the fire department, and tell them where you are. They said, we're also going to call the hotel and let them know where you are. So the gentleman just came up. He's like, are you there with the wheelchair? I'm like, yes, there with the wheelchair. Yeah. And he said, okay, stay there. If the fire department determines that there's a real emergency, because this is more likely false than anything, then they will come get us. And so I think we're going to move over there so that they can see us from there and I can sit down. Oh, okay. Wait, there's one over here. Let's go to this one over here. I had not previously seen a area of refuge sign, which is a sign that you'll sometimes see in hotels showing you where you're supposed to wait in an emergency.
Right.
That's like your spot. There'll be a wheelchair on it. And I hadn't seen that. And so I was like, all right, I'm going to look all the places normally those are. And we went by the elevators, which there's often something there. There was nothing on the back of our door either. The alarms are giving instructions. They're saying, please exit the building, do not use the elevators. Yeah. But that's the extent of it. It doesn't say anything other than don't use the elevator and get out.
Okay, so the alarm just went off. It is 12:48 a.m. So the alarms went off, and right now we are waiting to hear back from, I guess, cast members. There's some cast members down in the lobby over there telling us if it's all clear or not. And so haven't seen the firemen yet, so don't know what the status is. Yeah, first thing that's ever happened to us before. It's at a hotel. The fire alarms go off on the fourth floor. And so what to do? We don't know. So we'll see. In a few minutes, hopefully they'll tell us what to do if we can go back to the room. Well, you see, people are starting to stream back in now.
After they gave the all clear, which they didn't communicate to us, even though we were, again, making ourselves visible, we just saw people coming back into the building. So we thought, oh, it must be over. So people are coming back into the building. And then I saw that same cast member and some folks that looked like they were probably managers. And so I yelled down and I said, are we allowed to go back to our rooms now? Like making the point that y'all haven't said anything to us. And they said, yes, it's over. And I said, okay, so what was actually supposed to happen? Because we were sitting up here with a wheelchair and no way to get down. Finally, a cast member came up to where we were. And I asked, what should we have done? Because clearly that wasn't it.
Right.
And he said that I should leave the building, leave him behind. They said, take him to the elevators, like he's not able to get himself to the elevator. It was very ableist.
Yeah.
And then leave him there. And I should come outside and let someone know that he's there. And I said, okay, if I come outside, will I be allowed back in the building? And they said, no.
Yeah, that's like, then why would you leave your companion, partner, spouse, loved one behind while you evacuate?
Child.
Yeah, that doesn't, it may have been he was so early in the morning why he was just didn't know what to do or say.
Well, these are procedures that they should know. Right. Every single person who works there should know what to do in the case situation. Of emergency. This should be part of the standard training. And I know, and I've made clear how angry I was at that response, but I haven't actually asked you, how did that feel as I was being told to just abandon you?
It was odd because I don't understand. It's almost like, yeah, so you're supposed to just leave your family members behind while you evacuate. To me, that's like, that doesn't make sense. It didn't make sense. But it's also like, okay, that's not how it's supposed to be. You need to either better training or need to learn procedures better or something. But overall, it wasn't great. Thinking about that, leaving me behind, and you go and wander outside by yourself in the cold and stuff. So, yeah, it wasn't great. It wasn't great.
I mean, I would think it would be pretty awful. Like, oh yeah, just leave him behind. Like, what?
Yeah.
We tried to go back to bed. We tried to calm ourselves down. That took a while. We went back to bed. The next day, I ended up getting sick, most likely because of the stress of the situation. Both of us were not feeling well that day. And so we basically lost the day to we stayed in the room and we didn't do much because we were just not well. We went to bed that night.
And at 12:32, it went off again.
We are once again being evacuated from Wilderness Lodge at 12:46 in the morning. Second night in a row. Third time in a week. So I have my phone. We have a room key.
Go.
This is insane.
Do not use the elevators.
All right, so we have a lot of people downstairs in the lobby, probably because it's so cold outside. I'm at a loss for words as to how to even begin to deal with this. I know that it's a false alarm, right? But my husband is in a wheelchair. He is a full-time wheelchair user. So no, he cannot just hop down the stairs. Now, in an actual emergency, I would figure out a way to get him down the stairs. because clearly there is no plan happening here at Wilderness Lodge. I've never been in this situation. This is obviously every disabled person and loved one's nightmare. Oh, look, there's all kinds of people coming inside now. That's funny. So like some people were outside and are now coming inside. Other people never went outside, it looks like. What kind of chaos is this?
All right, a little bit behind the scenes. Oh man, I am so tired. But alarm just literally turned off. It's, I don't know, we don't have an all clear yet. Hopefully we'll get an all clear soon.
Did they call all clear? Yeah, all clear. Okay, thank you. All right, so apparently it's all clear now.
Yeah.
The fact that it was happening the exact same time the next day, and this was the third within a 4-day window, I knew this was a false alarm at this point.
Yeah.
So I was just annoyed and angry. I wasn't scared. I think that everybody knew this was a false alarm,
yeah.
and so they weren't even enforcing that people needed to go outside.
It was, again, an experience that not great. Wilderness Lodge, not great at all.
So the next morning, I was ready to fight with somebody. So we went downstairs and Disney was in full crisis response PR
mode. It was insane.
So we come out, there's free coffee in the lobby, which is like, that's not a thing, and snacks and, there's
characters. There were
we saw Donald, Goofy, and Pluto.
Yeah.
Those are the ones that they typically bring every once in a while to just as a magical moment. We'd seen them at the hotel previously, so it's not all that uncommon to see them, but they were there first thing in the morning, taking pictures, signing, everything. Then Minnie showed up, which okay, they don't just bring out Minnie for anything.
No,
and then the man himself, Mickey, came. He did a round around the restaurant, and he was doing rounds in the lobby, and he was taking pictures, and he was signing autographs, and he was doing all the things. They do not bring Mickey unless you are paying to see him.
Right. It was really something.
They had a man walking around with a basket of candy, just handing the candy like it was a reverse trick-or-treating situation. He was just like, would you like one? Would you like one?
Yeah.
I mean, they were, and they knew, and they had bazillions of managers. They must have taken every manager from every hotel and told them to show up at Wilderness Lodge today.
Okay.
Because they knew that they were going to have a bazillion things to address, and so they were ready.
Backtrack real quick. The previous night, when we went off the second time, on site, there's only one manager and one cast member at, I guess, midnight or that late night.
But it's midnight. I wouldn't expect there to be 30 managers there.
Oh, but he's a manager, but they had only one manager and one employee behind the counter, and they were swamped. There was a line of people trying to talk to the desk, trying to figure out, and we had one lady was like, either she was a cast member or somebody. She was like, all right, people, we need to make a line here and get this line. There's all one line. There's only one person behind the counter. And she was basically directing people to...
She was in her pajamas with a blanket around her back, but fully in cast member mode. So she must have worked there, but she was, taking her own. But yeah, I will say that night, the primary customer service functions were to make room keys, because a lot of people left their room without a magic band or a key or anything, and they needed to get back in. Yeah. And of course, they didn't even have ID, so they had to get creative.
People's work. Hey, I work live in this room. Right. All right, sure.
So they had to deal with that, and then there was someone sort of taking names of people who needed to talk to somebody in the morning, they had a problem arise because of this, and then also people who just wanted to complain. Right? They were taking names for that too. So I got in the complainer line and I said, wheelchair accessible room, 4th floor, this is not acceptable. We can't do this anymore. We got to fix this.
Right.
So next morning, I go to the counter and I end up speaking with a manager who oversees multiple hotels. He was very apologetic. He understood, they were all in apology mode, of course.
Right, yeah.
But with our situation in particular, he understood
wheelchair
the gravity
user.
of the situation. Yes, with wheelchair user and being on the 4th floor. He asked, did I want to just move to a 1st floor? I said, no, I want to get out of this building. I cannot be in this building anymore.
Right.
This is dramatic. I want to enjoy the last 2 days of my vacation, and this ain't it. And so he arranged for us to be moved to hotels. They also gave us credit for a night of the hotel, but at rack rate, so it was really a night and a half of what we paid. Mm-hmm. And they got us some free lightning lanes and things like that. They were just trying to be as accommodating as they
Right.
could, knowing
Yeah.
that like there's nothing they could do to make it better.
Right. But they should take some steps. So hopefully they took some steps to really address the thing in the future, because that's the most important part of it. You just can't say, all right, here, we apologize.
When I spoke to the man, I told him that, and I was very respectful, but I also wanted to give him concrete things that I thought they needed to address.
Right.
I told him that I was a travel advisor who is triple specialized in accessible travel. I told him that we have a blog where we just talk about accessible travel all day, and that when I did the lives that night, I was getting comments and questions, and I shared them with him to say, like, there's information and I need to understand what should have happened, and I need you to understand what I was looking for that didn't happen, so that you guys can address, because this is a communications challenge at its finest. And while it was interesting as a communications professional watching them in crisis communications mode, there still are a lot of communications things that they need to fix in order to deal with this. I explained that there should have been instructions on the back of the door of the accessible rooms
which they
about
wasn't
what to do.
Where
It
to
had
go.
the evacuation routes, but it didn't have anything about the fact that you're a wheelchair user and you're on the fourth floor. That needs to be addressed. There should be an area of refuge. It should be marked on the back of the door, because that room is designed for people in wheelchairs. So it doesn't have to be on every room, but it sure enough needs to be on that one.
Yeah. Yeah.
I also explained that they needed to have signage so that when you are trying to evacuate and get yourself to stairways or what have you, there should be something indicating where wheelchair users should go. I looked at the stairwell, I looked at the elevator lobby, all of the places that I would think to look, and it wasn't there.
Right.
And he was very receptive to my comments, and it was a very productive conversation. I explained that they needed to better inform their staff. I told him about the fact that the staff member the previous night had told me to abandon my husband, and that was unacceptable. And what if instead of my husband, it was a child who wasn't, who was too big to be lifted down the stairs or too fragile to be lifted down the stairs?
Right.
What then?
Right.
Are you leaving a child there? That was not an acceptable response. And the fact that the manager gave me a different protocol for what should have happened than what the cast members did overnight, they clearly have some training challenges. He was taking notes. He was very appreciative. And so I do believe that they will look into this. I hope that they do. I hope they do it sooner rather than later, especially for that room that is on the fourth floor.
Right.
Now, in terms of what he said should have happened, he said that our best bet would have been to go to the stairwell and wait in the stairwell, because the firefighters will come up the stairwell when they do the checks to make sure everyone's out of the building, and so they will see us there. So that would be our plan moving forward. I also plan to figure out a place where we can safely do a practice of trying to get him downstairs, because he is mobile enough that I think we could maybe scoot down as like a toddler or something. It would take us a very long time to get out of the building, but I do believe that we could start making progress towards getting out. Once we got to the bottom, he'd have to hold on to me, and I'd have to, struggle to get him out of the building, and then probably need some people to help us move further away from the building.
Right.
But at least we could get a start on evacuating while we're waiting for the help from the fire department
to come. Yes.
So that would be our plan moving forward. We do practice fire safety here at home. We actually know which evacuation routes. We've figured out how to exit and make sure that all of our exits are wheelchair accessible so that Adam could get out in the event of a fire. But doing it in a hotel with stairs is a very different situation. And so that is something that we will be looking
unfamiliar
into.
Environment and such,
And so I would say that because this is not just a Wilderness Lodge problem. Disney is at the top tier of accessible hotels. And so if they got this wrong, anybody could get this wrong.
Right, yeah.
And so I think that more than looking at this as Disney screwed up, that's not the message here. The message here is that we have to be our own advocates and know what to do in the event of an emergency. And I admit, I did not know.
Right.
In all of my trainings about accessible travel, accessible hotels, all these things, neurodivergence and dealing with that in parks and all that stuff, none of that prepared me for what to do
In an emergency.
in a fire emergency
Yeah.
or an evacuation. So I had to learn. I had to do some research. I had to figure some things out. And I think it's important that you all do the same, because if
Right.
you're watching this, my guess is that you or someone you love is in a wheelchair and you don't want to be in that same situation.
Right. Just in the first day, just probably as you check into your room, look at the back of the door to figure out what the routes are and things like that. Because again, jarring, waking up 12 o'clock in the morning, you may panic and just grab stuff and run out the door. What direction is it? Left? Is it right? Because the way you came in may not be the same route as you go out. So that's something to pay attention to, because it could be going. You come to your room from the left. That's where the elevators are, but the stairs may be to the right. So yeah, just like Brooke said, it's something we have to learn. We have to advocate for ourselves, even though it's supposed to be clear signage. It may not be, so you may just have to go look for yourself.
So after you've looked for signage, if you don't see it, if it's not clear to you what you should be doing, if you don't see a sign that says area of refuge, your next step is to ask. And
Yeah.
I know that probably feels weird and awkward, and it's certainly something that I've never thought to do, but I will from now on, because that was horrendous and I don't want to go through that again. So I will, if I don't see it, I will ask what their plan is for being evacuated. I know the plan for being on a cruise ship. I know, but it never occurred to me that I needed to specifically ask, especially if we're not on the first floor. If we're on the first floor, then that does provide some safety there, which brings me to my next point. First floors are better. I used to very much dislike first floors, but now I'm seeing that they have a huge advantage. And so that is going to play a factor in our plans moving forward. And yeah, it's hard to give up that view, but the trade-off may be worth it. So know your options. Look for the signage. If you don't see the signage, ask about it.
Right.
Consider a first floor, requesting a first floor for safety. And if all else fails, go to the stairway, because the fire department will go up the stairs.
Right.
And call 911. I mean, I don't think I was wrong for calling 911 in that situation. So if I was in that situation again, I'm going to call them again, because that at least gave me the peace of knowing that somebody knows we're there.
Right. Yes, that's the most important part, because if no one knows where you are or where you are, and if it's an actual emergency, you don't want to be trapped, unfortunately, on the wrong side of the event.
We hope that you've enjoyed this video, but more importantly, we hope that you've found this informative.
Yes.
If this has happened to you, if you've been in a situation where there were alarms and you're in a wheelchair, please comment below and let us know what happened. I think this is a really important conversation, and I'd like to hear from others about their experiences. I need to learn more about this. I want to feel more comfortable, and I've done some research. I feel more comfortable now than I did, but there's always other
More you can
scenarios.
learn, yes.
And so if you have had this experience, please comment below. If you have a question that we didn't answer, please also put that below, and hopefully we can begin a dialogue here about fire safety when you're in a wheelchair, because there's not, as you know, there's not a whole lot of content out there about this. We may well be the first people to ever do a video on this. So please, let's get a conversation going. If you liked this video and you found it helpful, please consider liking and subscribing. We do content about traveling with a wheelchair, and we try to show as much of our experiences, both good and bad, so that others can learn from them, because we remember how scary it was when we first wanted to travel after he was in a wheelchair, and we want to avoid that kind of scary feeling for other people. So thank you for watching, and until next time,
stay strong,
get creative,
and keep exploring.
We'll see you in the next video.
Bye.